To take it one step further, though, if you are making a conscious decision up front as to what type of novel you're writing, what genre, what categories, that type of thing, you might also then consider, do you want to write in a series? And I'm going to keep saying this. My advice on your first book is don't worry about any of this. Just write the most natural book. Don't worry if it fits any categories. Don't worry if it's considered literary fiction, which typically doesn't sell anything. Don't worry. Just get the first book written. But the other way to look at it is if you write a book that you're comfortable with and it happens to also double as the first book in a potential series, then you're in good shape, because if it works out, readers respond to it, you like it, then you can write book two, and you can build off the momentum, and maybe go 3, 5, 6 books in the series, whatever is comfortable. Then you've got a legitimate series. One thing I'll say right up front: the best way to make money on Amazon writing novels is to write in a series. There's no doubt about that. Readers are more inclined to read the first book if they see a series has already been produced. So, or possibly even if they see book one of the so-and-so series and there are no more books, at least the fact that they see that there's an intent to add on books, that also will probably help intrigue the readers. What they don't want to see is just a standalone book and that's it. Because if they invest their time and energy into it and then they end up liking it, then they're disappointed that there are no more, that there are currently no more books and no more potential books. There's no indication there are going to be more books. And they figure, all things being equal, if they're going to put their energy into something, might as well put their energy into another series, into another book that looks good, but that then is the first of a series. So that's one factor. The readers do appreciate series. Another factor, though, is if you do write in a series, I would advise you to write what they call a standalone book for the first book and for all the subsequent ones. And I made a mistake doing this in my crime series, my vigilante justice series. I've got a character, develops a situation, becomes a vigilante, and yes, each book he deals with situations and solves problems and whatever has to do, but apparently there, for some readers, or long-standing readers of crime fiction, they've told me that the books need to be a little more self-contained, so that, for example, if a reader picks up a book 6, just cold, they don't know anything about you, and they find your book 6 or your book 2 or 3, whatever, that they can have a satisfying experience just reading that book. Yes, they know that there's backstory that they're not quite up to speed on, but there's nothing that really confuses them and gets in the way. My books are really intended to be read in order. And if a reader picks up a book 6, he or she probably will get a bit confused, because I don't rehash at the beginning of every book. The first chapter, I don't kind of go back over the story. They're expected to have read them in order. And I feel good that I did it that way. I really don't care that it doesn't conform, but I think it's hurt my sales, honestly. So that's something to consider. And I guess if I was going to do it all over again, I might try harder to make each book a standalone. An example of a crime series standalone that's popular would be, I believe, Lee Child, the Jack Reacher books. Again, he has an overriding situation. He's on the run. He moves around from town to town. But each book is a self-contained episode. And what the reader doesn't know, if the reader picks up book 12, and that's the first exposure they've ever had to the Jack Reacher series, what they don't know from previous that they missed out by not reading previous books or what they assume they don't know doesn't really affect their enjoyment and ultimate satisfaction from completing the book 12 on its own. So that's something to consider. I would recommend, if you can, make each book stand on its own, at least to a large extent. I tried to add a synopsis in my case. Once I was told this, the beginning of the book, sort of an introduction, I tried to add a brief synopsis, warning that there's a few spoilers in there. This is if somebody picks up a book 6 and hasn't read any of the previous ones. That might help to an extent. But I think my series really that's not going to change. It's geared to be read in order. And so that's something to consider. But again, bottom line, if you're thinking about genres for your first book, then you may as well consider, do you want it to be the first in a series? Will it work? Is the idea that you have germinating something that could work as the first in a series? Actually, in my case, with the crime book, I wrote my first book a couple of years ago thinking that was the end. But then I had a lot of people that asked me, okay, when's the next book? And I hadn't really thought of it as anything that could continue, but apparently there was some demand. And then I took another look at it. I realized, yeah, it does, kind of by accident, I did write the first in a series here, and it should work to lead into future books. It doesn't wrap everything up neat and tidy or kill off the main character, whatever you might do, to completely destroy any possibility of continuing it. So again, if you can look at genres, think about a series, and if you think about a series, think about making that first book and each subsequent book essentially a standalone, so that the reader does not have to have read any of the previous books to appreciate any of the subsequent ones. Okay.